Hallo Deutschlerner! Today I'm going to try something just a little bit different than what I usually do on this channel. I'm going to pull back the curtain just a little bit on my Deutschlerner Club, or my A1 and A2 course subscription system, and I'm going to show you what it is that I actually have behind the paywall, and the things that you can find from there. So today's video is just going to be an exclusive video that is part of the A2 course. So early on in the A2 course, there are some things in there about prefixes. So there's inseparable prefixes, separable prefixes, and then common ones and less common ones. And in between, there are a bunch of worksheets that go along with that. And then the exclusive content that you can find from the Deutschlerner Club is a copy of the worksheet and also a copy of the answer key, but then also this video that I'm about to show you, which is a explanation of the worksheet in depth, of me explaining exactly what you were supposed to do with the worksheet, and so you can find what the answer should have been, but also why the answer should have been that way. So I'm going to show you that video today, and if you decide that the Deutschlerner Club is something that you might want to try out, you can try it for 7 days for free, and there's a link down in the description for that if you want to try it out. But without further ado, let's just get into the video. Hello and welcome to another worksheet exercise, and today we're talking about the separable prefix verbs again, this time with the worksheet that goes with the song that you just saw yesterday. So today's worksheet is pretty similar to the one that we did the last time. All we have is a bunch of sentences, and we have to put together these sentences. These are much more targeted at your level, so more at the level where you don't have any of the perfect tense, you don't have any of the weird stuff that I had in the previous one. So this one should be a little bit easier for you and a little bit easier to digest. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get into this. I'm just going to scroll down slightly so that I can have all 15 on one page, and then we can get started. So the first one on here is a statement. It says so by having a period at the end of it, and we have the verb aussehen. Aussehen means to look like, so this sentence is supposed to be combined with wir as our subject. So we look like a, or so wie, like a punk rock band, or eine Punk band. So we're going to combine all of that stuff together and make one full sentence out of it. First thing in our sentence is going to be wir, which is we in German, so wir first. Then we need to conjugate sehen to go with wir, which is sehen. Then we have so wie, and eine Punk band. And then at the very end of all of this, we have the separable prefix, which is of course going to go at the end of the sentence, because that's what happens in statements when you have normal word order. So at the very end of the sentence, we have aus as our separable prefix. Wir sehen so wie eine Punkband aus. We look like a punk band. Next up, we have the verb vorhaben in this sentence, and this one has an und in there, so something is going to have to be combined with another. So this one I'm actually going to use meine Mutter und ich as our subject. So meine Mutter und ich. Then we have a form of haben, so we have to conjugate that and put vor at the end of the sentence, because that's where the separable prefix is going. So meine Mutter und ich haben, that's the wir form again. And then nothing tomorrow planned, or morgen nichts vor. So here we have time, manner, place, or time, direct object, manner, place. This one has morgen first, that's time, and then the nothing, which is the direct object of the sentence. So meine Mutter und ich haben morgen nichts vor. My mother and I don't have anything planned for tomorrow. Next up is a question, which means that we either start with a question word or the verb. There is no question word on this list, so we do have to start with the verb this time. We have the verb fernsehen, which is to watch television, and we're using the ihr form here because we can see the word ihr directly after the word fernsehen. So we have to first conjugate sehen to go with ihr, which is seht, and then our subject ihr. Then we have time, direct object, and other stuff again. So we have heute Abend as our time, then the direct object, etwas, and then finally at the end of the sentence, fern as our separable prefix at the very end. And again, we have a question mark at the end because, of course, this is a question. Seht ihr heute Abend etwas fern? Are you watching television this evening? Or are you watching some television this evening? Seht ihr heute Abend etwas fern? Next up is another question, this time using a question word. We have the question word wo in there. So we're going to start our sentence with that. After that, we have to, of course, have the verb herkommen, and we're going to conjugate this to go with the do form. We just have the kommen part of this first, so kommst, that's K-O-M-M-S-T, kommst, and then du as our subject. And we're going to use den in there as just kind of an emphasis word, and then at the very end of the sentence we have the prefix Herr. Now you can put woher together at the beginning of the sentence and say woher kommst du denn, which is the same sentence but slightly different. So the only real difference is that technically when you have woher in front instead of putting her at the end of the sentence, is that it's not actually a separable prefix then, it's actually just a question word that has the same connotation to it. So the end result is the same. Technically the first one is actually what we should be writing. The second one here is another version of the same type of phrase. After that, in Nummer 5, here we have a statement again. This one has du as our subject, and this sentence is supposed to be, you are picking your brother up from school. So we start off with du as our subject, and then we have our verb holen, or abholen. We have to conjugate holen to go with the do form, which is holst. And then after that we have the person being picked up, which is, it auto-corrected for me, holst. Then we have the direct object here, deinen Bruder. And then after that, the place from which we are picking him up, which is von der Schule. You probably haven't encountered this before, but von is a preposition. This preposition requires us to use the dative case, which comes up later in this course. And the dative case is going to require feminine things to now have the article der in front instead of die. So von der Schule. And then at the end of all of this, we have the preposition, or the prefix, which is ab. Du holst deinen Bruder von der Schule ab. Now, alternatively, you can say that your brother is picking you up from the school. In order to do that, you have to know the accusative version of du, which is dich. So the sentence then would be, dein Bruder holt dich von der Schule ab. Now, being as this is a worksheet about separable prefix verbs, it's the main point here is that we have the separable prefix ab at the end of each of these sentences, but it is flexible in the way that we can use whichever one we want. So either you are picking your brother up from school or your brother is picking you up from the school. It just kind of depends on how we want to phrase it or what we were actually trying to say. Next up, we have the verb vorbeikommen, which is to come past or come by. And we have the verb, the subject here, Brandinspektor. So this is the fire inspector. So we're saying the fire inspector is coming by at 3 o'clock. So we start with our subject, der Brandinspektor. Then our verb, which is kommen, which is the RZS form here, which requires us to put T at the end of the stem. So der Brandinspektor kommt. And then the time that he is arriving, 3 Uhr, at 3 o'clock. And then at the end of the sentence, vorbei. Just for good measure, it's probably a good thing to remind you that you can always start a sentence with the time element of the sentence as long as it's a statement. So we can start this one with 3 Uhr, and then our verb kommt, followed by the subject der Brandinspektor, and then vorbei at the very end again. So either one of those is perfectly acceptable. There's nothing wrong with either of those sentences. They mean exactly the same thing. The at 3 o'clock at the beginning is kind of drawing more attention to it. So if you wanted people to pay attention to the hour, so me personally, I would always phrase this sentence with the time in front. I would say 3 Uhr kommt der Brandinspektor vorbei. And that would kind of draw attention to the fact like, hey, pay attention at 3 o'clock. This dude's coming over to make sure that we're up to code on fire inspection and stuff. Nummer 7, we have the verb zurückkommen, zusammenkommen, that is. Zusammenkommen is to come together, or to get together. And we're taking this sentence with the subject of wir, and we start our sentence with the subject most of the time. So we'll say wir kommen, that's the wir form of the verb kommen. And then we have tomorrow at 6:30 again. So wir kommen morgen Uhr 30 wieder zusammen. At the very end of the sentence, again, we have this zusammen, which is our separable prefix. Now again, if you wanted, you could put morgen at the beginning and then put wir after kommen, or you could actually put morgen 6:30 Uhr right in front of everything and then have kommen next and then wir. So there's lots of flexibility in here because we have two time elements, and you can either do one or the other or both of those time elements at the beginning of the sentence. The only one you can't really put at the beginning of the sentence is this wieder, and that's because it means again, and it's not quite the same thing as the time element here. Next up, we have another question. This question does have a question word, so we're going to start with that, which is wann, and then we have the verb anfangen, to start. The thing that is starting here is das Fußballspiel, which means that we need the RZS form of the verb, which would be fängt, which has a stem change from an A to an A umlaut, which you get here in a few other lessons. But the verb here is wann fängt, and then das Fußballspiel is our subject, das Fußballspiel, and then against Bavaria is the next thing, so gegen Bayern. And at the very end of all of this, we have the separable prefix an. Wann fängt das Fußballspiel gegen Bayern an? When does the soccer match against Bavaria start? Next up is another question, this time with the question word warum. So we start with that at the beginning of the sentence. And this one is again one that has flexibility. We have two subjects here. We could either use ich as the subject, or we could use du as the subject. To me, du makes more sense for the connotation we're going for, but grammatically speaking, either of them could work. So, warum hörst du? And then we have the dative pronoun mir, followed by the not, nicht, and then zu. So altogether this says, why don't you listen to me? Me in this sentence is going to have to be dative because we have zuhören, which is a dative verb. This is one of those weird quirks of the German language that we'll teach you here in a few chapters whenever we get to dative verbs. But for now, just know that it is mir as a dative pronoun, and it's dative because it is a dative verb, which requires that object. I said that you can have two options for this. Again, you could start off with warum höre ich dir nicht zu, which this would be kind of the response to the first question. So if someone says, warum hörst du mir nicht zu? Why aren't you listening to me? Warum höre ich dir nicht zu? Why aren't I listening to you? Du hörst mir nicht zu. You aren't listening to me. And, an argument ensues thereafter. Next up in Nummer 10, we're back to having statements. This statement has the verb anziehen, which is to put on, and the only person that can put on a blue dress for this party is my sister, so meine Schwester. And then the verb ziehen to the RZS form has a T at the end, so zieht. And then after that we have the time, manner, place, or the direct object, then the manner and place. So ein blaues Kleid, a blue dress, für die Party, for the party. And then at the very end, the separable prefix, an. Meine Schwester zieht ein blaues Kleid für die Party an. My sister is putting on a blue dress for the party. Next up in number 11, we have the verb aufhören, which is to stop, and Vogelgesang is a bird song. And the preposition here, the adverb endlich is finally. So we're saying finally the bird song stopped. I would put endlich at the beginning. Endlich hört der Vogelgesang. And our separable prefix at the very end. Endlich hört der Vogelgesang auf. Obviously, again, you could put the subject at the beginning like we did for all of the other sentences and say der Vogelgesang hört endlich auf, which would be the bird song finally stopped. It's the same connotation, but putting endlich in front makes it so that it feels more like finally the bird song stopped, or finally the bird song stopped, or the bird song stopped finally. It's putting more emphasis on finally by putting it first. Next up in number 12, we're back to having a question, which starts with a question word, warum. Then we have the verb aufräumen, and we're going to use the subject of do. So we start with räum as our stem, and then add st for the do form. Add in the word du, and then we have the thing that we are cleaning up, which is dein Zimmer. The way in which we are cleaning it up, which in this case is not, so nicht. Warum räumst du dein Zimmer nicht auf? Why aren't you cleaning your room? Warum räumst du dein Zimmer nicht auf? Could also be translated as why don't you clean your room, or why are you cleaning your room? Both are viable options for translations there. You just kind of pick which one makes most sense for the situation you find yourself in. The next one is a question, but no question word here, so we're going to start with our verb. The verb is mitkommen, so we start with our stem, komm, and then we have du as our subject, so we're going to add st to the end of it. Kommst du, are you coming? And then tomorrow to the movie theater, so we're going to have tomorrow first, that's the time, morgen, and then the place that we're going, ins Kino, and then at the very end of all of this, we have the separable prefix, mit. Kommst du morgen ins Kino mit? Are you coming along to the movie theater tomorrow? In English, we have to the movie theater tomorrow is the most natural sounding to me anyway, for how you would phrase this in English. In German, we start with time and then manner and place. We don't have manner in this sentence, but we do have time and place. So we have time first, then place. So don't forget the word order for those things. It goes time, direct object, and then manner and place if you have all of those things or all of those pieces of a sentence. Next up, we have another statement, this one using aufstehen, which is to get up or stand up. And we're going to use here mein Bruder as our subject. Mein Bruder, and the verb stehen, conjugated to go with mein Bruder, would be the RCS form, steht. And then in the morning at 4 o'clock, you would say morgens 4 Uhr. And then at the very end of all of this, we still need the separable prefix, auf. Mein Bruder steht morgens 4 Uhr auf. My brother gets up at 4 o'clock in the morning. You could, of course, start this off with morgens 4 Uhr steht mein Bruder auf. So in the morning at 4 o'clock, my brother gets up. You could also just say, morgen steht mein Bruder 4 Uhr auf, but that does change the connotation ever so slightly, because that to me sounds more like tomorrow my brother is getting up at 4, as opposed to like the other two sentences, the ones that I have written out here. This one sounds like they do this often, or they do this all the time. Morgens, by the way, is the difference here. Morgens is in the mornings, that's all of the mornings. Morgen all by itself, just one without the S at the end, makes it so that it is the singular form, so one morning or tomorrow morning, that is. Next up, we have the verb hinstellen, which is to put down or to place down. We're going to use der Junge as our subject. Der Junge starts off the sentence then. And then we have the conjugated form of the verb hinstellen to go with the Junge. Hin is going to go at the end of the sentence because, separable prefixes. But we're going to conjugate stellen to the RCS form, which is stellt. Der Junge stellt. And then we have to put the thing that it is being stood onto the table. This would be, in this case, den Kuli, which is the pen. And then auf den Tisch, onto the table. And then hin, which is down. This sentence does mean, by the way, that the pen is standing upright on the table. Otherwise, it would have to be using the verb legen, which is to lay it on the table. The difference being that this verb indicates, stellen that is, indicates that it is in a standing place once it's done. If you use the verb legen, it means that it's in a lying location afterwards, which means, obviously this pen here has to be upright. It is a vertical standing pen. I guess the boy is bored during class or something and is trying to get the pen to balance standing up. At any rate, der Junge stellt den Kuli auf den Tisch hin. The boy places the pen on the table. All right, that's the last of our sentences for today. That's number 15. What I would do is encourage you to find some extra separable prefix verbs on your own. Go out, find as many as you can, and see if you can write maybe 5 or 6 sentences on your own. You can either leave them as a comment underneath this video, and I will come back to you and answer your questions, make sure that you're writing them correct if you want, or you can just message them to me somehow, or email me, however it is that you want to get a hold of me. Send me over about 5 or 6 lessons, or 5 or 6 sentences using these separable prefixes, and I will be happy to check those over and take a look at them as just an extra bonus perk for following along through this lesson. Das ist alles für heute. Danke fürs Zuschauen. Bis zum nächsten Mal. Tschüss! Like I said at the very beginning of this video, this is a sneak peek or a look behind the curtain of my Deutschlerner Club. If you would like to join the Deutschlerner Club and get lessons like this every single day for practically an entire year, go ahead and click the link down in the description. You can join there for free, try it out for 7 days, and if you like it, you can either sign up for $9.99 per month or $99.99 per year. So check it out. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, and I'll see you next time. Bis dann. Tschüss.